On Monday, Mexico woke up to soldiers on the streets. This after the country's most wanted drug lord, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, better known as El Mencho, was killed. Fear spread almost as fast as the news itself. El Mencho was the leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, or cjng, one of Mexico's most powerful and ruthless criminal organizations. His empire trafficked fentanyl, methamphetamine, and cocaine into international markets. On Sunday, Mexican special forces finally caught up with him at a ranch in Jalisco state. And then the clashes began. Cartel members flooded the streets in at least 20 states. More than 70 people died in the unrest and its aftermath. Well, to bring the situation under control, the Mexican government has now responded with force. It's deployed an additional 2,500 soldiers to western Mexico on Monday, bringing the total troop presence to roughly 9,500. According to Defense Secretary Ricardo Trevilla, agents tracked El Mencho through one of his personal relationships with intelligence help from the U.S.
Through military intelligence work, we located a trusted person of one of El Mencho's romantic partners who transported her to a facility in the town of Tapalpa, Jalisco. At that location, she met with El Mencho, this romantic partner, and on February 21st, she left the property, and we obtained information that El Mencho remained at that location.
Se retira del inmueble y se obtuvo información.
According to Mexico's defense secretary, the entire operation was carried out in 24 hours. And to avoid arousing suspicion, the mission was primarily carried out by ground forces with limited air support from helicopters.
They went into a wooded area. This cabin complex was on the outskirts of Tapalpa, so adjacent to it was a wooded area, and that's where El Mencho and his inner circle headed. A perimeter was established. Special forces personnel pursued them. They located him hidden in the brush. They opened fire against the special forces personnel.
President Claudia Sheinbaum praised the Army's operation. She assured citizens that peace and stability in the region will return soon. And she made one point clear: no U.S. forces took part in the raid itself.
All operations are carried out by federal forces. There is no U.S. participation in the operation. What there is, as we have said here several times, is a great deal of information sharing. The understanding with the United States is based primarily on the exchange of intelligence information. In this case, the U.S. government provided information and even issued an intelligence statement, but the entire operation, from planning onwards, is the responsibility of federal forces, in this case, the Ministry of National Defense.
Sheinbaum is under mounting pressure from Donald Trump to clamp down harder on drug trafficking. But the crackdown and the violence that followed sent shockwaves beyond the political sphere. It brought daily life in key cities to a sudden standstill.
Honestly, well, I'm coming to school with worry. I'm coming with some fear and apprehension because we don't know how it's going to reach us or what kind of impact it will have here in the capital, even though it was in Jalisco. We were actually on tentative class suspension because there are classmates who come from the state of Mexico, right?
In Guadalajara, schools were shut and public transport was suspended as fearful families stayed indoors. Tourists head inside hotels, watching the unrest unfold from behind glass windows.
It's definitely really scary. I hope that it ends soon. This is supposed to be like a vacation, a sanctuary where everything is peaceful. And then now it's like I'm currently in a war zone. So that is really nerve-wracking. We had to cancel all of our trips that we planned for the next few days. We were going to go on a fishing trip and we can't do that anymore because we'll be like floating ducks in the water and it's just completely unsafe. Hopefully this ends soon. I'm not sure when it will, but we've been hearing that it's going to go on for weeks.
Mencho's death sends a message, but it also creates a vacuum. Analysts are warning that his killing could trigger a domino effect beyond Mexico, especially in Ecuador and Colombia, where parts of the cjng's cocaine network operates. Their regional partners may renegotiate routes, and rival groups may begin fighting for control. Well, it's all opened up a tinderbox of difficult questions. What happens when one of the hemisphere's most powerful crime bosses falls? And does the government have the resources and the will to continue the fight? Well, for more on this now, we're joined by Juan Pablo Luna, the Diamond Brown Chair in Democratic Studies at McGill University and Professor of Political Science there. He's joining us live from Montreal, Canada. Welcome to the program. How much power, then, do these cartels actually have, do you think, especially when you consider the scale of the violence that has followed El Mencho's death?
Yeah, this is one of the most violent cartels in Mexico history. Probably it's the strongest one at this point. And to understand the situation, I mean, what we need to understand is that this is not only a drug trafficking organization. I mean, that's one of their business, but the other business has to do with providing security and hegemonizing violence in certain territories. So this cartel was prominent and became prominent after a previous backing by centralizing power and monopolizing coercion in a significant chunk of Mexican territory. So what you're fighting here is an organization that also has alliances with political figures, with political authorities, with police forces, in which are also highly fragmented. And therefore, I mean, what has happened here is that with the death of El Mencho, you essentially kick a hornet's nest, right? And so the situation is incredibly volatile, as you were describing. Much of what will happen will have to do with succession and how this succession is played out.
Right. Well, let me ask you this, then, if I can just jump
Yes.
in there for a moment.
Yeah.
I mean, to what extent has all of this been prompted by threats from US President Donald Trump, especially after what happened in Venezuela?
Yeah, I mean, like Trump's and Trump's role in this new era of hemispheric relations has been a disruptive force, right? In terms of the geopolitical forces that are playing out in the region, and this also has to do with his like relationship to Claudia Sheinbaum and like how that plays in Morena, which is the leading party in Mexico. He had a difficult relation with AMLO, the predecessor of Claudia Sheinbaum. AMLO embraced a policy that was called abrazos no balazos, which meant hugs instead of bullets, right? And which essentially predicated the need for a more kind of like consensual and less aggressive strategy on cartels, departing from Mexico's war on drugs that started in 2006 under Felipe Calderon. And now, I mean, this switch that the Mencho's assassination signifies and portrays also means that within Morena, you have a change of a strategy, and that change certainly will have a lot to do with what the U.S. Has been advocating in the region.
Okay. Well, given what you say, then, I mean, how much of a challenge is this to Claudia Sheinbaum's authority as Mexico's president?
Well, I mean, that's up in the air, right? And on the one side, I mean, you have this all this narrative that has to do with the U.S. triggering this operation. On the other hand, like the U.S. has often allied with the Marine forces in Mexico. This was an operation carried over by the armed forces, not by the Marines. And Mexico has been very, and Mexican officials have been very clear that they did this with information contributed by the U.S. and U.S. Agencies, but this was a Mexican-built operation. This also has to do with a rising figure on the which is the Mexico Security Minister, Omar Garcia Harfuch. He was heavily injured a few years down by El Mencho, by an operation called by El Mencho. He was Claudia Sheinbaum's security minister in Mexico City, where she was the mayor of Mexico's capital. And now he became the Ministry of Security. And my sense is that he is starting to position himself as a strong hand or mano dura leadership within Morena, right? That might eventually come to contest the next election and the succession of Morena.
Okay,
So
we're going to
this
have to
might
leave it
need-
there. Forgive me, we're out of
Yeah.
time. But Juan Pablo Luna, we appreciate your insights. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Power doesn't end quietly. Some deaths are not accidents. They are messages. A gunshot. A crowd. A country frozen. The killer disappears. The questions don't. This is not just about who died. It's about what followed. Governments fell. Armies moved. History rewrote itself. 5 leaders. 5 moments. One pattern. The assassination.